There has been a lot to play out recently in the Nigerian economic space as well as the global economic space. And one of those, or two of those major activities are the reappointment and the sack of major board of directors for some major Nigerian banks, as well as the report released by the Bretton Woods institution, speaking of the World Bank, regarding growth projections for the global economy as well as specific nations and regions. So we will be looking at the growth projection for the sub-Saharan African region and Nigeria precisely. And joining me now to discuss all this major development is an economic analyst, Dr. Emmanuel Idenyi. Thank you for joining us on the program this morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Okay, Doctor, let's begin with the most recent development, speaking about the events that has happened within the Nigerian banking system. There was the sack of some major board of directors yesterday and the eventual appointment of some major board of directors recently. A lot happening in that regard. What do you make of all of these developments coming from the banking sector?
Thank you very much. For me, as an industry watcher and also a former banker who has been in a bank that has taken over other banks and has been in a bank that was taken over, this action is coming rather too late, particularly for some of the banks like Union Bank, like Polaris, like Keystone Bank. These actions should have been taken and concluded, but the challenge has always been there has not been an investor that will take over the management of those banks, and the CBN in exercise of its powers, because what CBN has done is within the ambit of its provisions according to CBN Act 2007 to save depositors' funds. Now, if a bank has problem, the first culprit are the shareholders. They are the ones that have refused to manage the banks properly. Then the top management cannot recuse themselves from the mismanagement of the bank, and because this is depositors' funds, and I can tell you for free that this is what the new central bank governor, Dr. Olayemi, saw when he started talking about recapitalization of the commercial banks, because if they are not properly capitalized, depositors will lose their fund, and the CBN that we have had since 2005 will not allow any depositors' funds to be lost. So that is why this move is coming at the time it is coming, though rather late, but it is to save depositors' funds and, of course, give that public perception that the banking industry is still strong, because the chief regulator has wielded a big stick, and that's why they have to remove all the management staff and replace with those who can begin to pivot the banks in a direction that it looks like it has confidence in the depositors' funds that are with them.
Speaking of the new management of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Yemi Cardoso, we had heard from him during his maiden address where he talked about the roadmap with regards to his tenure as the CBN governor. One of the things he pointed out was the market capitalization of the banks, stating that he expected for them to have as much as 1 trillion naira in terms of banking capitalization. But coming now to the issue at hand, where the CBN accused these banks of, regulatory non-compliance, corporate governance failure, amongst other things. You have touched on the capitalization issue. Well, beyond that, what are the other issues that these banks fail to comply with? Because like the statement rightly pointed out, these banks have recorded corporate governance failures. So what issues specifically did these banks not meet up to?
The next is insider abuse. Is a major problem with the banks. Insider abuse, yes, lack of corporate governance. Then, of course, non-performing loans. There is a ratio to your deposit base that your non-performing loans should be. Yes, the CBN gives a time lag, and this time lag that the CBN has given, these banks have not met, and they cannot continue to give that time lag. It will also interest you to know that under the former administration of the central bank, the commercial banks borrowed as much as 10.9 trillion from the central bank. That is not a bad thing, but do they have capacity to pay it back? It will also interest you to know that 70% of the deposit in the banking industry is only in 6 banks. Same with the risk assets. And CBN will not sit by and allow it to continue, particularly when they have knowledge of mismanagement. Some of these directors give loans to their cronies, give loans to themselves. That's part of insider abuse and lack of corporate governance. So, and even if an investor is going to take over the banks and has the money, they must meet those conditions precedents in the Prudential Guidelines, in the Bank and Other Financial Institutions Act, before CBN can allow. And CBN cannot give them grace forever. So they had to wield the big stick, because depositors' funds, hard-earned depositors' funds to put, are involved, and we cannot allow it to crash. And that's why the CBN did what they did, because for the likes of Polaris Bank, Keystone, they are long overdue. The signals are there in the industry. We could see the moves, and CBN gave them a time to see if they could make good their promises. Because when such happens, CBN will say, give you time to say, yes, we will make good. And this good they have not made, and the depositors are on the brink, and we're in an economy that is not too buoyant. And the banking industry is a major player in the economy of the nation. So CBN needed to do that as a matter of urgency.
But what message does this pass to the international community, say investors? There's been a lot of conversations around how Nigeria is ready for business and how we can attract foreign direct investment. And then we have issues like this play out. And I quote, the report also stated that the legal irregularities within the Central Bank of Nigeria started during the leadership of the former CBN governor in the person of Godwin Emefiele. So I am wondering, what kind of message does this pass to foreign investors or individuals and companies likely or wanting to invest within the Nigerian system?
The truth of the matter is, this is sending a wrong signal. Now, the former governor of the Central Bank, under his watch, did a lot of things that was not within the purview of the central bank. It will interest you to know that the central bank governor, under the former governor of the central bank and the deputy governors, borrowed to the federal government over and above what is approved in the CBN Act of 2007. The Act says that you should not borrow more than 5% of the previous year revenue. Emefiele exceeded that. Now, that's not the problem. Even if they exceeded, did they pay back? These are sending signals to the international communities and to foreign investors, because all they need to do is to take your report and look at what is the favorability ratio of your report. Can we bring our money? If we bring our money, is it going to do well? What is the return and rate of investment on our money? So it is a signal that is wrong ab initio. But should CBN continue to keep the former management of the central of the banks? Definitely not. They had to fire them and let the international community know that we have taken over with a new management, and this new management is willing to abide by the rules and regulation in both here and in CBN Act and in the Prudential Guidelines. These are the things that guide every bank, and these people did not meet it for a very long period of time, and CBN cannot sit by and allow that to slide.
Indeed, good. We're seeing actions being taken by the current administration of the CBN. But moving now to other issues, we have seen reports from the Bretton Woods company, speaking of the World Bank, with regards to growth projections within the global space, the African region, as well as other regions. And according to that report, Nigeria's economy is expected to grow by 3.3% for the year 2024 and 3.7% for the year 2025. Doctor, let's hear from you now. What, in your own point of view, or how possible or how feasible is this projection? I ask this because we had seen growth projections last year. However, Nigeria didn't meet the expectations of the World Bank and the IMF. But let's hear from you. How feasible are these current projections?
Thank you very much. For you to do growth projections, you must check two things. One, the ease of doing business, because it is businesses that make economy to grow. Number two, what is the favorability of the exchange rate, particularly our naira, to the primary currency of trade, which is the dollar? Then what is our tax regime? How favorable is our tax? So for economies to grow and there's a projection, we must have productive businesses. Our businesses are shutting down. Some multinationals shut down and left Nigeria. They also turned their staff into the labor market. So these projections, be that as they are we willing to even work to achieve it? I don't see, because there is an imminent food crisis in the North Central, courtesy of the attacks, Christmas Eve attack in Plateau, and based on the Plateau, and we know what those attacks cost. those attacks were not only, people were not only killed, food bans were also burnt. And if food bans are burnt, that's economic activity going down. So if there is no favorability for economic activity, how can we achieve growth? That's number one. I'm expecting the federal government, for instance, the coordinator of the economy, Wale Edu, to come out and issue some statements pertaining some definite metrics that concerns growth. But sadly, we are battling with the looting of money in government treasury by a ministry, and names are being called. Meanwhile, economy is going down. Food crisis is imminent in North Central because of this attack, even in the Northeast, even in the Northwest. So these are the things we look at to determine whether the economy is growing. We have a lot of potential line follow in agriculture, a lot of potential line follow in the tourism sector. And until we pay close attention to this, we will not achieve that growth. Look at what dollar rate to naira is today. And this is the primary currency of the world.
Well, let's talk specifically on inflation. Like you've rightly pointed out, we currently are experiencing food crisis in certain regions due to insecurity. However, the World Bank stated that growth in the coming years are expected to be driven by sectors such as agriculture, construction, services, and trade. Speaking about policies that could be implemented regarding these sectors, for us to see the perceived growth, what low-hanging fruit issues would you recommend that we tackle as soon as possible to, achieve these growth projections that we're hearing from the World Bank?
These low-hanging fruits have been there, and they are still hanging. We have not invested enough in the agricultural sector. Look at what we did with the rice revolution. Can we pay such concentration on, let's say, maize, millet, the fruits, the vegetables, the other sectors? Because these are low-hanging fruits, like I usually say, that are still hanging. And government, unfortunately, have not looked that way. And let me give a clear example. There is no state of the federation you go today that there are no low-hanging fruits of what government can do, that there are quick wins. And as they are achieving those quick wins, people are being employed. You can take, for instance, from Plateau, Nasarawa, Benue, there are no juice manufacturing plants, there are no potato processing plants in those regions, and we manufacture and produce this in number. Statistics has it, MBS gave us that 40% of post-harvest is wasted in Plateau, Nasarawa, and Benue. And if you travel along that belt, you see this waste. Nothing is being done. They are being rotten. Nobody is saying anything. And even when investors come in, because I've had privilege to have investors come into this state, the bureaucracy of government to allow them to invest is so much that some of them turn back with their monies. This happens in every state.
Doctor, and just before we go,
that we can take advantage of.
In 1 minute, Doctor, the last time we heard from the CBN, there were conversations around how often the Monetary Policy Committee should meet. And one thing the current governor, Yemi Cardoso, stated was that the CBN just might not be meeting as often as they used to. What are your thoughts on this in 1 minute?
Truth is, that meeting has to be often, because that is what gives the direction to policy watchers. The meeting is not just a tea party meeting. It's a critical economic meeting. So I don't support that, like he said, because it is statutory that you must meet once in 2 months, because there are policy directions. So if they don't meet, how will they issue statements that will make economic watchers, foreign investors, even industries to know where the bank, as the regulator of the economy and as the banker to government, is going? These are the things we need to do, courtesy of new management of the central bank, because they need to be on their toes because of what has been done by the former management of the central bank.
Well, we indeed wait to hear from the CBN on their policy direction moving forward. Dr. Emmanuel Idenyi, an economic analyst, thank you for joining us on Business Daily.
It's a pleasure to be with you all the time. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
And this is the point where we draw the curtains on today's edition of the program, where we delved into issues, recent issues within the Nigerian and global space, speaking of the sack and reappointment of board of directors for some of Nigerian banks, and also the reports from the World Bank regarding growth projections for Nigeria and the global economies. For now, we will be drawing the curtains, like I said. Join the conversation on social media and let's hear your thoughts on the conversations from today. My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching and bye for now.